Hello, cats and kittens, felines and felidae, humans and variant humans, and every race, class, and subclass. Welcome to another episode of Brainy the RPG Cat. I'm just reserving tonight's stream to draw a little bit more of Brainy the RPG Cat, the comic. There's just a couple of pages that I probably want to clean up and add new inks to, and they are pages that people have already seen. Um, it's not too new and exciting what I'm going to be doing tonight, but I'm also going to be calling a art stream for tomorrow, Monday the 19th. Um, we'll just do this and then we'll work on some new pages tomorrow. Is that a deal? It's a deal. I think it's a deal, anyways. Um, Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. As usual, this stream is brought to you by GreatMedia.Games. For inexpensive TCG single cards, visit GreatMedia.Games and use the code 10Finity at checkout for 10% off your online purchase. So let's go ahead and let's head on over to the screen so that we can start working on the cleanup for these pages. OS Devon is waving at me. Hello, OS Devon. Thank you very much for tuning in. So, as I said, I've just got a couple of, very obvious sketches embedded in these two past pages I was working on. The other one is up here. So, previously, um, I had a. Previously, I had different art here. I had art that I digitally sketched in during a previous stream, but I'm not going to be using that one. I'm just going to be bringing this in that I drew on a pencil, and then, we're going to be cleaning that one up a little bit. You know, Stupid coincidence is that both times, I forgot the frill on the top of his hair, so yeah, that's just something that I'm going to fix. So I'm going to be working on two panels here, and then I'm going to be working on the larger splash page on this page. And I'm going to start by inking this page that I had previously scanned and uploaded to my Twitter page. So, um, that is effectively, a lot of the times when I was working on these two panels up here, I said I was going to import art for the third one. Well, this is the art that I wanted to import. So, let's go ahead and start right here. This will be slightly easier to do because it's the larger works that we are going to do. And I think I was also talking a lot about the possibility that this might be a black and white or color comic. I do think that I want to make this full color. And I'm probably going to go back and I'm going to start reserving some streams just some, uh, for coloring some of this. So make that into an official statement from yours personally. I do actually want this to be a color comic. All right, so take a look at our standard pen. I think that might be a little bit on the thick side. I'm probably going to want something like a 4. Okay. And then, as usual, check your stabilization. Mine is over 30 on this one, so I don't think it's going to be I don't think it's going to make much of a difference. Do you have a preference for black and white or color comics? And, well, honestly, my preference is usually just for low resolution comics. They could be low resolution color comics, and they can have, two color dot matrix style shading. But even that, just kind of seems, not really the tone of what I am working towards. I do want this to be at least taken a little bit serious as a fantasy and partial game book, so I'm more than likely just going to use standard digital colors for it. Alright. So, thank you very much for tuning in, Red the Rabbit. How are you doing tonight? Let's see. I'm gonna have to check the eye focus after I ink this a little bit more. I'll actually be back in a few, making a quick snack run. I've had a bag of Andy Cap's hot fries in my car for a while. And I keep saying, well, I'm just going to find the time to eat it, but I can't. I'm getting old, you know. I've got really good junk food in the car, and I don't even think about, getting up to eat it because of the effort that it would take. Probably the punishment that I would take afterwards. Oops. Accidentally sampled some white in there. Pretty good, Brainy and Devin. Did some work on my own comics, and I'm doing some laundry and playing Fallout 4. Well, I haven't played much of the Fallout games. I know people enjoy them, but I just really kind of feel like a game that's that much of a sandbox can really just kind of be, a lengthy, aimless kind of experience. And in the same note, I have never played Skyrim, although I do have a Dragon Age game that for PS3 that I'm keeping up in my retro game collection, and maybe I'll pull that one out someday. Still thinking about that. I'm thinking about that. I just need more commitment all over. That's what I need to do. I don't like thinking about PS3 being retro. Well, me neither, but I gotta face facts. I was in a whole different place in my life when the PS3 was hot. I did bring it to me when I moved from Texas to Colorado, and I remember hooking up to an old round tube inside of an RV, and that's how I played Bioshock Infinite. I didn't play any other games on it. I just played Bioshock Infinite until I completed it. So at the moment, I'm without both a PS4 and a PS5, and I barely miss it because most of the modern games that I'm playing these days are on PC. I did a few streams um, of some games on that, like Spider-Man the game, and also I think I played a little bit of Avengers the game too. And I keep thinking, well, I can go back to that, or I can buy the deluxe versions on PC and play those instead. Because it's a little bit more up to date, and Spider Man looks a little bit more like, gosh, what's his name? Not Tom Hiddleston, that's Loki. The guy named Tom who plays Spider Man. Tom Holland, that's the one. You know, they're British actors, and a great amount of Hollywood stars these days are British imported actors. So that's most of the face except for the mouth. Say Tom Holland. I think there's 3 Toms in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I'm trying to remember who the third one is. Tom Hardy, who plays Venom, yes, possibly. And that's another, really strange trivial thing is that both the guy who plays Spider-Man and the guy who plays Venom are named Tom. It's brain bending, I tell you. I'm going to do that detail right there, and then I drew right through it. I'll use my eraser right now. It's the MCU Tomiverse. Sorry, I forget. What's the name of the actor that plays Thor? Thor is, he's another, Robert. No. Chris Hemsworth. Yeah. Chris Hemsworth, guy who plays Thor, and then Chris Evans, the guy who plays Captain America. Maybe I'm just reading too much into this. And you have the holy trinity of Emma, Emma Watson, Emma Stone, and Emma Roberts. I feel as though I have barely ever seen anything with Emma Stone and Emma Roberts in it. I'm just getting old. I have no concept of who's famous anymore. Say, looking forward to the upcoming Dungeons and Dragons movie, Honor Among Thieves, starring Chris Pine. Oh my god. There's another one. You know, because IRL, my name is Mike, and I know that there's lots of Mikes in the world. But, you know, I'm having a hard time thinking of a Mike that's in the MCU. I'd die laughing if it was just the actors playing D&D in real time. Um, yeah, so that's an old fan theory, as I recall, is that Guardians of the Galaxy is the Avengers playing a space campaign. I return, I come bearing sugar-free Gatorade and a cookie. The cookie is there to completely offset the taste of the sugar-free Gatorade. I'm assuming. Somewhat. They didn't have regular. They don't make sugar-free cookies. Well, they make some kinds of sugar-free cookies, but they're not very fun. You take a bite out of them and you say, cookie broken. Well, I mean, you can find something that's halfway decent, like wafer cookies. If you get a wafer cookie, you don't really want a cookie. You just want something with frosting spread on top of it. So I'm gonna have to make this foot a little less fat and also get it to point in the right direction. Now that I made this foot smaller, I gotta make sure that it basically matches the other foot. Okay, that looks pretty good. I mean, it's just that this one over here is still a little bit smaller, but it is. I was definitely covering up a lot of, where I put Brady in this drawing. I don't know what I did when I drew this picture, but the eyebrows are in a completely different direction than what they should be. This ear is a little bit larger than it should be. So let me see what else. Well, today, I was actually at my local comic book store, playing a campaign that we've been doing in Spelljammer. And so, yeah, there's a reason I've been going over all the Spelljammer material, is that I've just kind of been internally making myself interested in what we're working on, just to get an idea of what the campaign is. And so, when we started out this campaign, we were actually limited to using characters in the player's handbook and in the Monsters of the Multiverse. And so the basic idea behind that was, we were going to be people who went from Terraria into outer space to work as couriers. And so my character in that is Tanaka. He is a Dragonborn samurai subclass fighter. And so, this is, a much more loose game, and, it is kind of played with, in the spirit of things like Adventurers League. So, we just have a lot of people there, who, are, the types who, try to burn down the shop, with fireball into the shop types. But, they don't bother me too much because, I know I'm not trying for anything particularly neat when it comes to these things. I'm just there to support the shop, and I'm here to support people's Dungeons and Dragons interests in the shop. So that's probably another lesson that I would just kind of generally give to people is that, there's a lot of talk about, always trying to create a show feel when it comes to drawing. Well, when it comes to playing Dungeons and Dragons, and I don't believe that's necessary. And so, just out of reflection of that, when we're playing a game and when people start getting especially chaotic neutral, then I don't say anything about it in that game. I would have a little bit more to say about it if it was my own game, but it's not my own game, so I just sit there and I play the player character. So far in this campaign, we've been to an underwater planet. We just kind of did a quick cargo drop off, and we almost accidentally dropped it off with the wrong people. Specifically, some people who were trying to work on a native insurrection. And so we went from that to a city with a large federation where some people got themselves marked with a Federation level cargo. An international. Big Federation planet had big Federation rules. And so a couple of people foolishly got themselves into a Federation quest. And right now we're dealing with the fallout of that. We went to the planet's moon in order to investigate a disappearance. And we have very quickly learned that the Federation are the people causing the disappearances, which is a thing that, just tends to happen. Interplanetary smuggling, well, not really smuggling, just less than ethical cargo holding and deliveries, which is, pretty standard for a game in Spelljammer. I always hesitate a little bit when I say Spelljammer, because I'm thinking about something I'm thinking that it's something else, like Starjammer, which is an X-Men spin-off comic that I used to read when I was a little kid. So I always get that just kind of mixed up in my head, and I can't say one or the other. I do the exact same thing with the software Fantasy Grounds, because it has a similarity to a local card shop around here called Enchanted Grounds. All right. Oops, forgot one hand. Alright, let me just kind of draw that in. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need to put the book background in there, and I'm going to probably use the same uh, backgrounds when it comes to that. So you never heard of Starjammer before? Well, it's kind of trivial when it comes to X-Men comics, but it comes slightly out of the Claremont era. Is that the Starjammers are effectively just a group of assembled space pirates that hang out in the usually mutant populated areas of space, like among the Shi'ar Empire. And the leader of the Starjammers is a fellow by the name of Corsair, who I believe is an ordinary human, but he is also the father of Scott and Alex Summers, and that's basically how it plays into the X-Men lore. So let me see. I think I just barely put that right about there. And so this is a slightly more close-up drawing than I had used before, when I had just drawn this panel digitally. Poor kids, yeah. The Summers family is mixed up three ways to Sunday. Um, there's talk about just that whole issue with Scott falling in love with Madeline Pryor because she looked a lot like Jean Grey, who was dead at the time, and in order to eliminate that storyline, they made her into an evil villain named the Goblin Queen. There was a rumored third brother in the Summers family for a very long period of time. I forget what they eventually did when they revealed him, but I don't think. And so I'm pretty sure he was an Omega level mutant, but then slightly afterwards, I don't think he played very well into anybody's storyline. Jeez, they've really been through the ringer. Yeah. And so, there's also the fact there's two alternate universe children of Scott Summers and Jean Grey. Well, actually, um, Cable, the son, is the son of Scott Summers and Madeline Pryor. So, I had already told you how that had turned out, but, in one alternate future, they managed to ignore all that and have a mess of children. And the other one, Rachel Summers, who took over for Jean Grey as the Phoenix. And then you throw into that, they have arch enemy characters like Mr. Sinister, and it's really you know, just leave the Summers family alone eventually. Okay, the eyes here have to be way smaller. So I'm going to draw the eyebrows a little bit lower. Just back-to-back berserk arcs for them, just no peace. Well, later on, they just start to also just kind of posit a lot of stories where Scott Summers himself started to come off as the villain, but this is just the plight of having a character that's been written in comics for a very long period of time. They just get passed from author to author, and try to deal with whatever interpretations of the characters already exist. It happens all the time with very major characters like Batman and Superman. So a good amount of the Batman mythos, the version of Batman that we really love, that's in like the 1989 motion picture and the animated series, and the great majority of Batman content really just kind of comes out of 3 years of his 75-year history. I personally, I'm probably the biggest fan of Batman the Brave and the Bold, because, there is a part of me that, that has an appreciation for super detective, gadgeteer, and very handy capable and amicable Batman. I think of things like the Adam West Batman, and I think, well, he actually had a Gotham which was crime free. I mean, if the only thing that you have to worry about is the Joker, then you don't have awful lot to worry about. And by the Joker, I mean the completely sanitary Joker that has a tendency to only do crimes in the form of pranks. I do like when they experiment with the lighter Batman, like the Lego Batman. Just going off, the ideas that they had in the original Lego movie, where Batman just kind of sees himself as, in the same way that a rock star would see himself. And that's why, they also just throw in all of those jokes that, Batman, Alfred should always be recording and things like that. I'm gonna have to make a decision about this. So yeah, I am going to make this slightly more lazy tear-shaped eyes, and then I'm probably going to forego the detail in the eyes, because I was really just unintentionally drawing them that big. Yeah, he kind of looks like he lit up a little bit slightly before beginning this story. So I need to fix the eye focus over here. Alright, that looks better. That's why I like She-Hulk. I love serious comic book stories, but it's nice to get some that aren't that heavy. I've definitely had my fill of grim, dark heroes for a while now. Yeah, and that's something that I feel like modern comic fans have overlooked due to motion pictures, is that comic books are completely bonkers, I don't think that we've had a truly... I don't think we've ever gotten a Fantastic Four movie in the spirit of the original comics, because they've always tried to do something in order to modernize it. And so, the Fantastic Four is just this great big pie in the sky, improbable super science fiction kind of a comic book. And we've never had a version like that. So I'm hoping that the new version that's going to come from Marvel Studios and the MCU is going to be that version. But it's kind of hard, to tell, specifically what that's going to, what direction they're going to take it in. And so, of the two studios, I have a tendency to think that Marvel does a better job when it comes to directly translating comics. I mean, um, we nobody anticipated the sale of Star Wars to Disney, but the original version of Guardians of the Galaxy really was shaping up to be their space opera franchise, and it entirely worked within the lore of Marvel Comics. They used all the alien species that already existed in Marvel Comics. Yerf. Yerf to you too, Crestman. Thank you very much for tuning into the stream. How are you doing tonight? I would do unspeakable things for a Fantastic Four MCU movie with Mole Man as the villain. Yeah, I mean that would be interesting. Because the fact is that you're taking people on an adventure, and you're taking people on an adventure that's not unlike the kind of tour that you would undertake in a Walt Disney movie. And so that would be the ideal way to make any kind of superhero movie. But I kind of feel like, when it came to things like The Rise of the Silver Surfer, that movie is just so completely bloated. They wanted to cover so much of what happened in the comics, what probably would have been a multi-issue spread in just one movie. They hit the reset button in a lot of weird ways. They turned Doctor Doom back into the guy from Nip Tuck. They threw in a couple of weird product placement things in there. And so when I was really young, I'd say probably I would put this at about when I was 11 or 10 years old. I would watch reruns of the 1960s Fantastic Four cartoon on, I believe it was TBS. And so they used to do the reruns on that network. Probably this was about, Cartoon Network was probably still about like 10, 15 years out in the distance. And I watched every episode of the Fantastic Four. Back in the day, they probably gave it to Hanna Barbera because they're doing such a good job with Johnny Quest, and so Johnny Quest and the Fantastic Four, just very very similar in terms of tone. The executives thought they had a better idea with the director. Yeah, that's something that tends to happen as well. is that it's really a situation where they didn't know what to focus on. The major domo in Fantastic Four stories is usually Galactus. But instead the focus of the entire movie is on uh, uh, the coming of the Silver Surfer. And by the time they get around to Galactus, they can't really show him with any kind of depth, so they just kind of make him into a gigantic cloud in the sky. I'd want the Fantastic Four to be a period piece set in the 1960s, make time travel, force them into the future, and make them do the wacky fish out of water hijinks that we never got with Captain America. See, now that in itself is another idea. That is something that is actually within the reach of Marvel Studios to do, because all they would need to do is, they would need to say all of this that happened with Doctor Strange and the multiverse is the reason that, they were unceremoniously teleported into modern times. That would be a good time. I'd even take it as a direct-to-video feature. Batman and the Justice League got some pretty decent releases in the last few years. Well, I kind of feel like DC Comics has been better in television than the movies. And it's really just, that's more of a long-form situation, is that, when you are making television, you have the time in order to really incubate the character, put them through the average everyday superhero issues, let them have develop relationships with other people, and then you can bring in all of the additional multi-comic press events, like the most famous big event in DC Comics is something that was called Crisis on Infinite Earths, and they did a really good job translating that in the CW verse. They spread it across the 3 shows that they were doing at the time. Well, actually, probably the 4 shows with Black Lightning, but but they split it up between the Flash Arrow and the Heroes of Tomorrow. I forget exactly what their names are, and they did really cool things with it. They did cameos with the 1988 Batman actors and the 1966 Batman actors. I mean, it was really just in order to, illustrate that, those were the universes that are being destroyed, but at least they acknowledged them. These days, people are up on Zack Snyder, and that strikes me as kind of odd, because everybody used to used to lambaste his movies. I mean, nobody liked Batman versus Superman. But they're willing to keep him just because, they want the spirit of some kind of continuity in the DC Comics universe. It's like continuity is king sometimes. Is that, you really got to, if you want to tell a story among comic book fans, it has to be a continuous story. And once again, something like that really wasn't even a priority either. It's just become a priority now because of the Marvel movies. I don't dislike the guy nearly as much as I used to, but I think they can do so much better with who they hire to do their films. I mean, there's also just this big outcry that's saying, give the Flash movie to the people who made the CW TV series, because it's probably the best version of the Flash that they've seen in a while. If you spend enough time, watching media related to superheroes, you see this stuff overlap a lot. They had a version of Starro the Conqueror, which was another big multi-comic event in Batman the Brave and the Bold. And I know that they'd already done it in Batman Beyond. I think that they had done a significant amount of it in the Justice League cartoon. And so it's a story that is historical, but it's a story that that they just tend to retread a lot because of its familiarity with the fans. On the subject, I only just recently found out about Jaro. It's adorable. I love it. Jaro. I think that's a very deep cut even for me. Let's see. Jaro. Um, Batman Wiki fandom. All right. Let's take a look at this. Um, Jaro the Starro in a Jar is an alien, Star Conqueror, who was grown and adopted by Batman. Despite being conflicted over his villainous heritage, he is incredibly affectionate towards Batman, who he considers to be his father. Jaro also dreams of being Batman's best Robin. Interesting. Um, so yeah, the genetic parent is Starro, an alien Star Conqueror, best known for having been the first villain of the Justice League in publication. Starro was a giant alien starfish with telepathic abilities, was capable of regenerative healing and asexual reproduction via biofission. Um, so yeah, that's just the background of Starro. Jaro would be kept in the Hall of Justice and would spend much time with Batman following the Dark Knight's crippling injuries. Jaro considered Batman to be his father and was incredibly affectionate towards him, all while dreaming of being his partner in crime fighting. When the villainous Legion of Zoom grew more powerful, Jaro became consumed by fear that the Justice League would be killed by them. As such, Jaro began releasing his mind control spores through the Hall of Justice and attempt to hypnotically force the League to stay away from the Legion of Doom. When Jaro did this, he grew to a giant size. Batman was able to break through to Jaro, telling him that they were all afraid, and refusing to succumb to that fear and impose it upon others is what makes them better than villains. By Batman's side, Jaro informed the Justice League that they would be preparing for war against the Legion of Zoom. And so, size manipulation, telepathy, regeneration. See, now, that is a story that I can get behind because, it's a Justice League story. It does go back into the history, and it does, but it does it in a way that explores, themes that would actually be interesting. So, I really like that. And that's the kind of story that I anticipate to read in the comics. I think they just kind of have a slightly harder time swallowing the prospect that they can put that into a feature film. Yeah, definitely. I mean, so the apprehension is something that's understandable because these movies have enormous budgets, and really the issue that we're dealing with there is, they don't want to spend too much money on something that they might not be uh, accepted critically, and something that might potentially turn up with a flop. But for all of the damage control that they do, that's what happens with a lot of things. That's what happened with Batman versus Superman. They struggle with kind of the some things that just kind of seem like a no brainer, like how you're supposed to write a Superman story. How are you supposed to write a Superman story? Is a Superman is a person who tries to use his powers in order to commit to an absolute good. And this is something that people had this trouble with when it came to um, Zack Snyder's movie, The Man of Steel, is because they introduced a Superman who, they created a Superman with the impetus that he did have to kill a villain that was never going to repent and was never going to allow himself to be apprehended in a fair way. And they just kind of, it's definitely a story that you should eventually do with Superman, but, they really just kind of, you know, fed that to us very, very early on. Like, they showed Superman's origin, and then immediately afterwards he had to make a compromise to his morality. And that's what people, had a difficult time with. See, I didn't realize it was that sudden. I never watched all of those movies, so I just assumed it was a long time coming. Well, I mean, if you look at it a certain way, a long time coming is probably a good way in order to describe that. And well, I think they did a little slightly better job portraying Superman when movies like the Justice League came out. But by at that point, the damage was already done. Is that um, the people of Metropolis, just kind of put Superman up on a pedestal, but he was already missing at the time, and so the symbolism of Superman was something that came after the fact. That came after he um, uh, damaged a large portion of the city and killed his would be um, evil counterpart. Okay, so yeah, that is that's almost right. It's just I'm just missing this little corner right here. Let me see. I think I should draw a line here so people have an idea where the other arm guard is. Probably not thinking of it as an arm guard. I actually forgot to draw the rolled up part of his hat as well. So let me just bring that back. It goes from here to about here. I personally feel like I like the best, more brutal portrayal of Superman is from the Injustice games, and that's fair, but we're also just kind of working, in that kind of situation where we're still working backwards from a version of Superman that really did have a stronger morality system, and so that's what informs the character when he no longer has that morality system. Okay, move on to the second panel here. See, I drew very little of the chair in this sequence because I guess I assumed that I was probably going to copy the chair from this previous one. Let's see, let me add a layer to that. So, the other thing about Injustice is that, it does have a basis in a lot of, already existing lore. Alternate universe versions of the Justice League that, just only slightly compounded their morality and are now living in an alternate universe where they're effectively the law. And Injustice has been at the forefront of that, because of the video games, but it is something that has been explored before, and yeah, that just kind of brings me full circle. Is that the fact is that there's very little that has been unexplored in terms of writing a long running comic book character. A lot of people are really into the animated Harley Quinn that's been running on HBO Max and the Sci-Fi Channel recently. And people, that makes a lot of sense because they are effectively drawing from characters um, as they would behave, but they're adding just a slightly more humorous, satirical bent to it. They do the same thing in shows like Star Trek, Lower Decks. As you figure that the people who are, going to crack all of the Seinfeldian jokes are going to be the people who actually don't have to work on the bridge of the USS Enterprise. You've gotten clips from it, but you do like it, yeah. And so, is well, just going along with what you had said about the Lego Batman. It's a lot more adult than that because it's trying to fit in with the Adult Swim sort of humor. And so, but even that, that is, acquiescing to a slightly more, adult sardonic bent on DC Comics lore. It's right up the alley of a character like Harley Quinn. I love Lower Decks. It reminds me of my army days when I was enlisted. I could share a beer with Mariner and we'd understand each other perfectly. Yeah, we're off duty. We understand. Yeah, this is perfect. This is a perfectly good time to relax. Um, my favorite gag from Lower Decks is when somebody says, "Well, I hate traveling to these TOS planets," and everybody stops for a minute. They go, "TOS? What's TOS?" And I said, those old scientists, Spock, Bones. Well, that ends two or three other things that they did with Q, who's just personally my favorite Star Trek character. I like the bit they did about the Voyager's crew getting commemorative plates, and Tom Paris. And so I believe that the Voyager crew plays a big role in a kid-aged series that they run on Nickelodeon. And so, it's really just, what they personally did is really just the sort of thing that will go through in legend. And, given, the bend of this conversation, you have a tendency to think of legends in a certain way. They probably did take it and they made a bunch of comic books and feature films, and at that point, the lore is just so completely and totally blown out of proportion that there would eventually be commemorative plates. And Tom Paris. Well, you've lost me on that one, unfortunately. Alright. So once again, I'm making it slightly smaller than I originally drew it. I'd still want them to somewhat be looking upwards. We're gonna have to really zoom in here. Accurately draw all of the toe beans. Okay, that's pretty good. No, I really should try to get the whiskers inside of the inside of his maw. Let's not cheat too much. Oops. Okay, so that's good for those two panels, I believe. Okay, and so I've finished what, I've set up to do so far, and so, it's probably only took me about an hour and 14 minutes. I am going to come back again on Monday, and then I probably hope that I'm going to be able to completely finish these next 2 pages and move on to a new one. But anyways, so thank you everybody for coming in. Thank you to OS Devin. Thank you to Red the Rabbit. Thank you to Kratchmensch. You guys are terrific. I do really appreciate the people who have continually been tuning into the stream. And so I'm working on a lot of things, and as I had said when I was talking about this during yesterday's stream, I had said that I'm working on making some things happen, and I'm hoping to introduce the first parts of it somewhere in mid-October. So Devin says good work, and Red the Rabbit says thanks for streaming. Yeah, I appreciate it, guys. Be sure to stay tuned because we're going to be doing a raid in a minute. But thank you everybody for tuning in. You guys are the best, and you guys are the reason that I keep working hard to bring you new and interesting streams every week. So I remain Brainy the RPG Cat. As usual, this stream is brought to you by GreatMedia.Games. For inexpensive TCG single cards, please visit GreatMedia.Games and use the code 10Infinity at checkout for 10% off your online purchase. So as Devin says, cheers. That's an awful nice way to put it. Cheers, Devin. Alrighty then, so let's go ahead and let's pick out somebody to stream on. I'm gonna put the browser window down so you'll actually be able to see what I'm doing. Oh, look at that. The Jaro page is still on. Alright. So, let's see. Who would I like to pay a visit to right now? I think I would like to go over to... Well, Rocky Mountain Pro is showing. So, let's go over to Rocky Mountain Pro. Let's see some exciting pro wrestling action from here in my home state of Denver. First a clip, and then let's set up the raid.
The luchadors.
Right. So a lot of things being worked.
That certainly was something for the 1 second that clip was open. But anyways, thank you everybody for tuning in. I'm going to be back on Monday, and we're going to be doing more drawing, and so hopefully I'm going to get through a significant portion of this comic by then. But thank you everybody for tuning in. Have a good evening, everybody, and thank you very much for watching.